My mother didn't move after she spoke. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the table like it might offer her guidance. No one rushed her. No one interrupted. It felt like the room understood that whatever came next needed space. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. I'd never noticed how loud it was before. My father cleared his throat, then stopped himself. He leaned back in his chair, hands gripping the armrests like they were the only thing keeping him grounded. He had spent his whole life avoiding conflict. This was the one he couldn't escape. Claire wiped her face with the back of her hand, embarrassed by the tears she couldn't control. She had always been the strong one. The one who handled things quietly. Seeing her break made everything feel more real. I didn't plan for you to find out like this, my mother said finally. Her voice was steady, but it didn't sound strong. It sounded practiced. I planned not to tell you at all. That landed harder than the letter. Not anger. Not betrayal. Choice. She had chosen silence. My Uncle David looked uncomfortable now. He shifted in his chair, suddenly unsure if he'd done the right thing. He had always believed truth was better than peace. Tonight was testing that belief. My mother took a slow breath. Before any of you were born, she said, I was someone else. She looked up at me then. At Claire. At my father. And I made a decision that followed me into every room of my life. She told us about being young. About fear disguised as responsibility. About pressure that didn't come from one place, but from everywhere at once. Family expectations. Financial uncertainty. Love that wasn't ready. There was a child. A baby she held once. And then let go. No one spoke. I realized my hands were clenched so tightly my nails hurt. My father's face had gone pale. You told me you couldn't have children then, he said quietly. She nodded. I wasn't lying, she replied. I just wasn't telling the whole truth. That sentence rewrote decades. Claire shook her head slowly. So, we have a sibling. My mother swallowed. Yes. That word echoed. Sibling. Someone out there carried our blood, our history, without ever knowing the room we grew up in. Without the holidays. Without the arguments. Without the silence. Or maybe with a different kind of silence. The cake sat untouched in the kitchen. Candles melted into wax puddles. The celebration had officially ended, but the night wasn't finished with us. No one touched the cake. It sat there on the counter, candles bent and leaning, wax pooled like it had given up trying to stand straight. The smell of sugar and frosting mixed awkwardly with the heavier scent of dinner that had gone cold. It felt wrong to even look at it. Guests left quietly. Not all at once. One by one. Polite hugs. Awkward goodbyes. No one knew what to say, so they said nothing. Doors closed softly behind them, like they were afraid to make noise in a house already filled with too much of it. By the time the last car pulled away, the house felt larger. Too large. My Uncle David lingered near the doorway, keys in his hand, regret written plainly on his face. He opened his mouth twice like he wanted to say something meaningful, something that might fix even a fraction of what he'd broken. He didn't. He just nodded at my mother. "I'm sorry," he said. She didn't respond. That silence was answer enough. When he left, my father locked the door behind him and leaned his forehead against it for a moment longer than necessary. I had never seen him do that before. He had always been the kind of man who stood upright, even when things were heavy. Tonight bent him. Claire moved to the sink and started washing dishes that didn't need washing. She scrubbed too hard, like she was trying to erase the evening through repetition. The clinking of plates felt too loud in the quiet house. My mother sat back down at the table. She looked smaller now. Not physically, but like the space around her had expanded, swallowing the version of her we thought we knew. "I didn't want this," she said quietly. My father turned to face her. "Then why did it happen?" She closed her eyes. "Because I was afraid," she said. "And fear is patient. It waits." That was the first time she cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Tears just slipped down her face, one at a time, as if even they didn't want to disturb the room. I sat across from her, watching the woman who raised me unravel in slow motion. "How old were you?" I asked. She looked at me, surprised by the question. 20, she said. "Almost 21. Claire stopped washing dishes. "You were a baby yourself," she whispered. My mother nodded. "That's what everyone said." My father sat down heavily. "Did anyone know?" She shook her head. "My sister. And David. That's it." Claire turned around. "And you never thought we deserved to know?" The question wasn't angry. It was hurt. My mother's voice cracked. "I thought telling you would make me selfish. Like I was asking you to carry something that wasn't yours." "But you already made us carry it," Claire said softly. "We just didn't know what it was." Silence settled again. The kind that doesn't rush. That night stretched longer than it should have. We talked in fragments. Half sentences. Memories that didn't quite connect. Questions no one was ready to ask. At some point, my mother admitted she didn't know where the child was now. Adopted. Raised somewhere else. A different life. "I tried to look once," she said. "Years ago. But I stopped myself." "Why?" I asked. "Because finding them meant accepting I was never finished with that choice," she said. That answer stayed with me. Around midnight, Claire left. She hugged our mother tightly, but her body was stiff, unsure. Love and distance wrapped together in one gesture. My father went upstairs without saying good night. That left just the two of us. I sat across from my mother as she folded napkins that didn't need folding. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled weakly. "No." Then she reached across the table and held my hand. "But I'm relieved," she said. I didn't know whether that scared me or comforted me. That night, I lay awake thinking about someone I had never met. Someone who shared my blood. Someone who grew up without us. And I realized something terrifying. This story wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined a face I didn't know. A life unfolding without us. A sibling whose childhood ran parallel to ours without ever crossing. It felt wrong, like discovering a room in your house you never knew existed, only to realize someone had been living in it the entire time. Morning came quietly. The house smelled different without the dinner from the night before. Cleaner. Emptier. The kind of emptiness that follows something important leaving. My mother was already awake when I came downstairs. She sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking, staring out the window like she was watching time move backward. "Morning," I said. She nodded. "I didn't sleep." "Neither did I." We sat in silence for a while. Not awkward silence. Heavy silence. The kind you share when you don't know how to speak without reopening wounds. "I should have told you," she said finally. I didn't respond right away. I was still deciding whether I believed that. "When?" I asked. She thought about it. "When you were old enough to understand. And then again when you were older. And then again every year after that." "And you never did," I said. "No," she admitted. "I kept waiting for the right moment." I almost laughed. There's no right moment for something like that. My father came down the stairs not long after. He looked exhausted. Older. Like the truth had added weight to him overnight. He poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter. "I keep replaying everything," he said. "Every conversation. Every doctor visit. Every time you told me you were tired." My mother flinched. "I didn't mean to lie," she said. "But you did," he replied, not unkindly. "And now I have to figure out what that means." That sentence sat between them. It wasn't an accusation. It was an admission. Claire called later that morning. She didn't say much. Just that she needed space. That she loved Mom. That she didn't know what she felt yet. My mother listened quietly and didn't argue. That was new. A few days passed. Then weeks. Life continued in the way it always does, awkwardly, unevenly, without asking permission. But something had shifted. My father became quieter. More distant. Not angry, just cautious. Like he was learning my mother all over again, except this time he didn't trust the outline. My mother tried too hard. She cooked meals no one asked for. Left voicemails that said too much and nothing at the same time. Apologized without knowing what she was apologizing for. And then one afternoon, she called me. "I want to find them," she said. The word "them" hung heavy. "Are you sure?" I asked. "No," she replied. "But I don't think I can keep pretending they don't exist." That was the first honest thing she'd said since her birthday. We sat at the dining table later that week with papers spread out between us. Old documents. Hospital records. Notes written in handwriting that barely looked like hers anymore. She traced her finger over a name. Not mine. Not Claire's. A name I had never heard before. "That was the name I gave them," she said softly. "I don't know if it's still theirs." I stared at it. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was a person. A life. My mother's hands shook as she folded the papers back into a folder. "What if they hate me?" she asked. "They might," I said honestly. She nodded. "I deserve that." That answer told me she was finally ready. We contacted an agency. Left messages. Waited. Waiting became its own kind of punishment. Every ring of the phone made my heart race. Every day that passed without news felt like rejection. And yet, beneath all of it, there was hope. Fragile. Terrifying. Necessary. Then, one evening, the call came. My mother answered on the second ring. She didn't speak at first. Then she sat down. Then she cried. Not the quiet tears from her birthday night. These were different. These were release. "They know," she whispered after she hung up. "They know about me." I swallowed. "And they asked to meet." Everything changed again. My mother didn't stop shaking for a long time after the call ended. She sat at the kitchen table, phone still in her hand, staring at the dark screen like it might change its mind and ring again. I poured her a glass of water, but she barely touched it. "They didn't hang up," she kept saying. "They didn't hang up." Like that alone was proof she deserved to breathe. The meeting wasn't scheduled right away. That would have been too easy. Too merciful. Instead, there were days of messages passed through the agency. Carefully worded questions. Boundaries. Clarifications. Did we want to meet? Yes. Did they? Yes. But slowly. That word came up a lot. Slowly. Claire refused to be involved at first. "I can't pretend this is normal," she said over the phone. "I don't even know who I'm supposed to be angry at." I understood. I didn't push her. My father said little, but I could tell he was unraveling in quiet ways. He started taking long walks at night. Staring at old photo albums. Asking questions about dates that suddenly mattered. "You were pregnant before we met," he said one evening, not accusing, just stating a fact he was still trying to accept. "Yes," my mother replied. "And I was scared you'd see me differently." He looked at her for a long moment. "I see you differently now," he said. "But not the way you think." That scared her more than anger ever could. The meeting was set for a Sunday afternoon. Neutral location. Public place. No expectations. Just coffee. My mother agonized over what to wear like it mattered. Changed outfits 5 times. Removed her necklace. Put it back on. Took it off again. "Do I look like a stranger?" she asked. "You look like yourself," I said. She nodded, unconvinced. When we arrived, the cafe was half full. Quiet enough to talk. Loud enough to disappear if things went wrong. They were already there. I recognized them immediately. Not because they looked like us, but because they were sitting the same way my mother did when she was nervous, hands folded too tightly, shoulders slightly raised like bracing for impact. They stood when we approached. My mother stopped walking. Her breath caught. That moment, those 3 seconds, felt heavier than the years that led to it. "Hi," they said. Just that. "Hi." My mother nodded, tears already forming. Hi. They sat. No one spoke at first. Coffee arrived, untouched. I don't know what to call you, they said gently. That's okay, my mother replied. You don't owe me anything. That was important. They talked about their life. Where they grew up. The family that raised them. A good family. A loving one. My mother listened with something between gratitude and grief. I wasn't unhappy, they said. But I always felt like there was a chapter missing. My mother pressed her lips together, nodding. I was the missing chapter, she whispered. They looked at her carefully. No, they said. You were the beginning. Something broke open then. Not dramatically. Not loudly. But enough. They asked questions. Hard ones. Why? How could you? Did you ever think of me? My mother answered everything. No excuses. No self-defense. Just truth. When it ended, no hugs were exchanged. No promises made. But there was something else. Understanding. On the drive home, my mother didn't speak. Then, quietly, she said, I don't know if they'll ever forgive me. I said, they don't have to. She nodded. That night, Claire called. I want to meet them, she said. And just like that, the story widened again. Claire didn't tell us when she decided to come. She just showed up. I heard her car before I saw her, tires crunching against the gravel driveway late one afternoon. My mother looked up from the kitchen window, surprised, then nervous, then hopeful, all in the span of a few seconds. Claire walked in without knocking. She looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who had spent weeks carrying a thought she didn't know how to set down. I'm not here to fix anything, she said as soon as she stepped inside. I need to see this through. My mother nodded, too afraid to speak. The meeting was arranged for the following weekend. Same cafe. Same table. Same uneasy familiarity. This time, Claire came with us. She sat quietly at first, arms crossed, watching closely. Studying a sibling she never knew existed. I don't know what to say, Claire admitted finally. They smiled gently. That makes two of us. They talked about childhood again. About memories that didn't match ours. Schools we never attended. Holidays that didn't overlap. I always thought I was an only child, they said. Turns out, I was just alone in a different way. Claire swallowed. I didn't lose a sister, she said slowly. I lost a story. That was the first moment something shifted between them. Not comfort, but curiosity. After that, contact became more regular. Messages. Short calls. Careful conversations. Nothing rushed. My mother stayed on the edges of it all, respectful of distance. She didn't demand anything. Didn't push for closeness. That restraint was new. My father, meanwhile, struggled quietly. He didn't attend the meetings. Said he wasn't ready. I believed him. One night, he admitted something that surprised me. "I don't know where I fit anymore," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I built a life on what I believed was true," he said. "Now I'm rebuilding it with missing pieces." He wasn't angry. He was grieving. Months passed. Holidays came and went differently. The empty chair at Thanksgiving felt louder than ever. The new presence in our lives remained tentative. Real, but fragile. And then came the question none of us wanted to ask. What do we tell people? My mother didn't answer right away. "I spent a lifetime hiding," she said finally. "I don't want to do that again." But telling the truth meant consequences. Extended family reacted with shock. Some with compassion. Others with judgment thinly disguised as concern. One aunt stopped calling altogether. A cousin sent a message that said, "I never would have guessed." That sentence hurt more than the cruel ones. But through it all, something unexpected happened. My mother became lighter. Not happier. Honest. She laughed differently now. Slept better. Spoke slower. The secret that shaped her had finally loosened its grip. One evening, she sat beside me on the porch. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted them to know they were wanted." I nodded. And I realized something else. This story didn't end with answers. It ended with room. Room to exist without pretending. Room to love imperfectly. Room to sit with what couldn't be undone. The first real conflict didn't come from strangers. It came from inside. It started quietly, the way these things usually do. Claire stopped answering messages as quickly. My father began excusing himself whenever the topic came up. And my mother, who had finally learned how to tell the truth, was now learning that honesty didn't always bring peace. It brought change. And change scared people. One evening, after dinner, my father finally said what he had been holding back for months. "I feel like I'm watching my life be rewritten," he said. My mother didn't interrupt. "I don't recognize where I fit anymore," he continued. "I wasn't there for that part of you. And now it feels like that part is everywhere." My mother nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to take space from you," she said. "I just didn't know how to share it." That was the problem. This story didn't belong to just one person. And yet, everyone felt displaced by it. Claire, who had always been the protector, admitted something one night over the phone. "I'm jealous," she said quietly. "And I hate that about myself." "Of who?" I asked. "Of them," she replied. "They didn't grow up with Mom. They didn't carry her fear. And now they get her honesty." That sentence stayed with me. Because it was true. My mother was different now. More open. Less guarded. Less afraid of being seen. The sibling she had given up was meeting a version of her we never knew. That hurt in ways none of us expected. And then came the invitation. A birthday. Not my mother's. Theirs. They invited us. Not just Mom. All of us. It took weeks to decide. My father said no at first. Claire hesitated. My mother said she would go if no one else felt pressured. In the end, we all went. The gathering was small. Friends, chosen family, laughter that felt earned. No tension. No walking on eggshells. Watching them live their life was strange. They were confident. Grounded. Whole. Nothing about them felt broken. And that was the hardest part. My mother pulled me aside during the party. I thought giving them up ruined them, she whispered. But it didn't. No, I said gently. It just changed all of us. Later that night, as people hugged goodbye, something unexpected happened. They hugged my mother. Not out of obligation. Not out of pity. Out of acceptance. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was real. On the drive home, my father reached for my mother's hand. That small gesture meant everything. Because it said, "We're still here." Some wounds don't close. They soften. And sometimes, that's enough. Time didn't heal everything. That was the first truth we had to accept. What it did was quieter. Less dramatic. Time taught us how to live around the damage instead of pretending it wasn't there. After the birthday gathering, nothing exploded. No arguments. No sudden forgiveness montage. Just adjustments. Claire started visiting my mother again, but their conversations stayed on the surface at first. Recipes. Weather. Neighbors. The kind of topics you use when you're afraid of what's underneath. My father remained polite but distant. He supported my mother without fully understanding how. Love, it turned out, didn't come with instructions for something like this. And my mother, she kept trying to be careful. Too careful. Like one wrong word might undo everything she had worked so hard to face. One afternoon, months later, she finally said what she'd been avoiding. "I feel like I lost the right to be your mother," she told Claire. Claire didn't answer right away. They were sitting on the porch, watching leaves fall. The season had changed again without asking permission. "You didn't lose it," Claire said eventually. "But you changed it." My mother nodded. "I don't know how to be this version of myself," she admitted. Claire sighed. "Neither do I. But maybe we don't have to know yet." That was the first time they laughed together again. Not a big laugh. A real one. As for me, I found myself thinking about identity in ways I never had before. About how families aren't just built on presents, but on the stories we're told and the ones we're not. The sibling we had found didn't try to insert themselves into our lives. They didn't demand holidays or traditions. They didn't claim a place at the table. They simply existed. And somehow, that made it easier. One night, my mother confessed something to me. "I spent years punishing myself," she said. "But I never realized how much that punishment shaped you." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I was afraid to love loudly," she replied. "Because I thought love was something I could lose." That hit me harder than anything else. Because suddenly, pieces of my childhood made sense. The caution. The restraint. The way affection was always there but measured. That was the inheritance. Not abandonment. Fear. And now, for the first time, she was letting that fear go. Slowly. imperfectly. There was no big ending. No moment where everything aligned and felt complete. Instead, there was something quieter. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, my mother looked around and said, "I don't feel like I'm hiding anymore." No one applauded. No one cried. We just sat with that truth. And that was enough. The next birthday came quietly. No announcements. No envelopes. No surprises waiting in jacket pockets. Just dinner. That alone felt like progress. My mother didn't overcook that year. She didn't clean like she was preparing for inspection. The house looked lived in instead of staged. It felt honest. Claire arrived first. She hugged our mother longer than usual, and for the first time, neither of them pulled away awkwardly. The hug wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional enough to be a movie moment. It was steady. My father brought out chairs without being asked. He didn't hover. He didn't monitor the room like he used to. He simply participated. That was new too. Our sibling didn't attend the dinner. Not because they weren't welcome, but because relationships like that grow in separate spaces first. They had met our mother several more times during the year: coffee shops, quiet walks, conversations that stretched across decades of silence. They were building something slow. Something that didn't need an audience. The candles on the cake flickered gently as we gathered around the table. The same dining room. The same chairs. But the energy was different. Lighter. Not because the past was gone. Because it was finally acknowledged. My mother looked around the table, studying each of us like she was memorizing the moment. Then she laughed softly. "You know," she said, "I used to think birthdays were reminders of time running out." She paused. "Now I think they're reminders of how much time we still have to fix things." Claire squeezed her hand. "I like that version better," she said. We sang the birthday song slightly off-key, like always. My father forgot part of the lyrics halfway through, like always. Someone clapped too early, like always. Some traditions survive everything. When my mother blew out the candles, she didn't make a secret wish. She said it out loud. "I wish for honesty," she said. No one laughed. No one made a joke about ruining the wish. We just nodded. Because honesty had already changed everything. Later that night, after dinner ended and dishes were stacked in uneven towers in the kitchen, I stayed behind again. That was becoming my tradition. My mother sat at the table, tracing the edge of her coffee mug with her finger. The room smelled faintly of cake frosting and candle smoke. "Do you regret it?" I asked. She knew what I meant. She didn't answer immediately. "I regret the silence," she said finally. "Not the truth. The silence gave the truth too much power." I thought about that for a long time. How silence doesn't erase things. It magnifies them. Distorts them. Turns memories into shadows that stretch longer than they should. "You were protecting yourself," I said. "I was," she agreed. "But protection can turn into isolation if you hold onto it too long." She leaned back in her chair and smiled, not perfectly, not effortlessly but honestly. I think I'm learning how to let people see me again. Months passed. Family gatherings became easier, not because they were perfect, but because perfection wasn't the goal anymore. Claire started bringing old photo albums to dinner. We sat around the table, flipping through images from years that now carried new meaning. Some photos felt heavier than before. Others felt warmer. Context changes memories. Our sibling eventually joined us for coffee one afternoon. Not a holiday. Not a celebration. Just coffee. That was intentional. There were awkward pauses. Careful questions. Moments where no one knew exactly what to say. And yet, something remarkable happened. No one tried to rewrite history. No one rushed forgiveness. They simply shared space. Sometimes, that's the bravest thing a family can do. One autumn evening, nearly 2 years after that birthday letter, we gathered at the house again. Leaves scattered across the front yard. The air carried that crisp, familiar smell that always makes people nostalgic whether they want to be or not. We sat outside this time, wrapped in blankets, watching the sky fade into evening. My mother looked peaceful. Not because her life was simple now. Because it was truthful. I used to think families were fragile, she said quietly. Aren't they? Claire asked. My mother shook her head slowly. No, she said. Families are complicated. Fragile things break once. Families break, and then they change shape. No one argued with that. Because every one of us had felt it. The reshaping. The uncomfortable stretching that comes with learning new versions of people you thought you already understood. Before everyone left that night, my mother handed Claire the letter back, the one from her sister. You should keep it, she said. Claire looked surprised. Why me? Because you helped me face it, my mother replied. And because stories shouldn't disappear just because they hurt. Claire folded the letter carefully and nodded. Years later, when people ask about our family, we don't tell them about the birthday dinner immediately. We tell them about the quiet rebuild. About learning that love isn't proven through perfection but through persistence. We tell them about how forgiveness doesn't erase pain, it teaches you how to live beside it. And sometimes, when my mother laughs now, it fills the room in a way it never used to. Louder. Freer. Like she finally trusts that happiness isn't temporary. The last thing she ever said to me about that night stayed with me longer than anything else. It wasn't the letter that changed our family, she said. It was the moment we stopped pretending we didn't need each other. Birthdays still come every year. Candles still burn down to melted wax. Songs are still sung off-key. And every time we gather around the table, there's a quiet understanding between us all. That time doesn't just move forward. Sometimes it circles back, giving people one more chance to say the things they were too afraid to say before.